Hello. I'm a few seconds late, actually, after the song ended. I was fending off cats who were jumping all over me all of a sudden at the last minute. And that's what I'm doing. But it's not a show about cats. As much as they want to be part of the show, they are not. Maybe next time, cats. But what am I talking about? You guys know me. It's your good buddy Spider, ready to lay on some stories and things to you. And tonight, I'm going to be talking about the Rubik's Cube. And not just that, other retro toys that I had as a child, or that I knew of as a child, or that just, stood out over my many years of childhood. So Rubik's Cube and retro toys. Let's talk about this. And, I would do like a show of hands and ask who here knows what a Rubik's Cube is, but I can't see your hands. I hope they're somewhere appropriate, but I can't see them. So I'm just gonna tell you, in case you don't know what it is. And if you do know, you can just be like, yeah, we know, okay, whatever. But just, sit back, relax a little bit, huh? Have a drink, have some coffee or something. Calm down, you're too high-strung. Rubik's Cube. It's a 6-sided toy. A big cube with colors on each side. And there are 6 colors. And each side is broken up into 9 sections. And the whole thing can spin and twist and turn in different ways to align these colors into, so that they line up with each other into patterns, okay? And the trick is, you start off with the colors all jumbled up across every surface of the cube. And the trick is to twist the whole thing around and get all the colors to line up for one color per side. So all 6 colors on all 6 sides. So one side will be red, then another will be all blue, and another whatever. Now, I played with Rubik's Cubes many times as a child. I played with Rubik's Cubes as an adult, and I failed every time. I couldn't get them. I can't get it. I don't know. I don't have that sort of a brain, I suppose. I like to think I'm a relatively smart guy, but as far as the cube goes, I don't have it. I don't have it. I know people who've been able to do it, but I have never been able to do it. And it's a funny thing for like movies and TV shows too. It's one of those things where when people want to demonstrate how clever they are, they solve it in like seconds. And I don't know if people can actually do that. They probably can. There's probably people out there who can do it. But I certainly can't. And they've been around for a while. Like, they were already like a thing when I was a kid. And I don't know if they came out like just in the 80s or if they came out before then. I think they were probably before then. Probably the 70s. Maybe even sooner than that. I don't know. I don't know exactly. But, yeah, they've been around a while already. And that's why I consider them a retro toy. Because of the length of time that they've been around. And they're still in use. You can still get them. It's not like a one and done thing. It's not like one of those things that was around when I was a kid and now it's not. They're still around. Now there's been offshoots of this. And I don't know how much people know about these. I only really know of one specifically. And I don't think it was called a Rubik's sphere, because it wasn't exactly a sphere, but it was some kind of geometric. I wanted to say geometrical, but I don't think that's the right word. Geometric shape, some 3D shape. But it was spheroid. It was kind of like a ball, but it wasn't. It had indentations all over. And it had triangles instead of squares that had colors on them. And it was a similar concept. You had to twist it around, everything moved and adjusted. It seemed more complicated than a Rubik's Cube, which means that no matter how often I tried to play with it, and I gave that one a go, like I would give up easily on the Rubik's Cubes, But this spheroid thing, I would really tackle. I would really try to get this figured out, and I got close a couple times in a couple areas, but I kept stumbling over things. It had more colors, I think. Maybe it didn't. Maybe it just seemed like there were more colors because it was a more elaborate thing, but you had to arrange it so that there were certain sections of the sphere that you had to change all into one color. You had to group all the colors singly on their own into each spot. And once you did that on each dial, I guess, because they were like big dials kind of that you had to turn, then you had it. And I remember getting kind of close a couple of times, but I never managed it. I didn't have the brain power at the time, and I don't know if I'd be able to do it now. Probably not. Another thing that come out later on when I was, I think this was a 90s thing, when I was a kid later on, preteen, Bop It. Do you guys know Bop It? Bop It. And it would have a button, it would have a horn, it would have a twisty part, it would have a pull cord kind of thing, and a rattle, and it was 4 or 5 different things. And the commercials are all bop it, spin it, pull it, twist it, and things like that, and you'd show the kids doing it. And the whole goal was, it would give you a pattern, and you do the pattern, and then it would speed up the pattern and adjust it, and add to it, and push and pull. And so you had to keep going faster and faster and faster until either it beat you, or something. I don't know if you could ever beat the thing. I don't know if there were levels to it, or if it just kept on going until somebody lost, and then you passed it to the next person. But the Bop It was a thing when I was a kid. And there were different versions of that, too. There was something called Simon, which was simpler. It was all buttons. And I think this was probably from the 70s, when electronics first started to get, big among kids and things. It was basically just a flat set of buttons, 4 buttons, and each button was 4 lights, basically. They all lit up different colors. And it would flash a pattern, like red, blue, green. And you'd have a certain limited amount of time to hit red, blue, green. Then would do red, blue, yellow, green. And you'd have to do that pattern. Then maybe red, red, green, blue, yellow. And it would keep increasing in difficulty. And you'd have to keep... It was a memory game. And you'd have to keep remembering and keep going until eventually you forgot, or you messed a step or something like that. I got too excited and whatnot. Simon was around. So Simon, Bop It. And there were different versions of these things too. These were just the 2 main examples that I can think of. But there was a lot more than that. There were all kinds of them. Even more retro than those, though. Lincoln Logs. Anybody know Lincoln Logs? I don't know if they still make them, honestly. I think they got discontinued. I could look it up, but I don't want to spoil it for myself. Lincoln Logs. They were basically wooden sticks, wooden rods, that were maybe a ½ inch thick in diameter, and they were maybe 8 to 10 inches long. Something like that. And not quite a foot long. It was less than that. I think maybe just 8 inches long. Maybe longer. I don't know. The exact size isn't important. But they would have these little indentations in it so that you could build, initially, the first thing that you were expected to build with them. You could arrange them, one on the other, in a stack, and cross-hatch things into a small house. Basically a log cabin. Because Lincoln Logs, it was supposed to be because Abraham Lincoln... President Lincoln was connected to log cabins, right? There's stories there, but I don't remember the exact details, so I'm not going to get into it. But that was the premise, and you'd build all these things with these Lincoln Logs, and I had those, or they had them at doctor's offices, because when you're a kid, you go to the dentist, or you go to the optometrist, or something like that, and in their office waiting rooms, they've got... Nowadays, I think they still have some things for little kids, but not as much. Maybe they have toy cars or something like that. But back when I was around as a kid, they had things like this, like Lincoln Logs and whatnot, and you would build stuff and see how high you could build towers or how sturdy you could build things and what patterns, and they were kind of limited because of where the indentations were. Like they were in the same place on every stick, so you couldn't just go wild with it. You had a set pattern you kind of had to build with, but they were fun. I liked them. Similar but different were Tinker Toys. Tinker Toys were fun. They gave you a little bit more freedom because they were even thinner, maybe like 1/4 inch or less wooden sticks, like toothpicks by comparison, but not quite that actual thin, but just like a pencil. They're about the thickness of a pencil, maybe. But they were longer or shorter. They had long and short, and they had all kinds of lengths. And then they had connector bits that were a big 1/2-inch thick wooden disc with multiple holes in it, like Swiss cheese. And you could just stick the other sticks into them, and you can connect them in all kinds of different ways and make all these spindly structures or like axles and for cars and all kinds of things. And you could do a lot with those. Tinker Toys, they were big when I was a kid. I'm sure those were much older than me. I'm sure those had been around. Because all these simple, like, connecting toys and things made out of wood, that's kind of an old school kind of thing. We don't have too many things nowadays made out of wood. My daughter actually has a model of a dolphin that she got recently that she made out of wood. Like fiberboard or something like that. And so they still make some things. But Tinker Toys and Lincoln Logs, and those were big when I was a kid. And they were holdovers from previous generations. They'd been around for a while by the time that I was there. But they also had, and for the adults in the room, don't chuckle at the name here. It's not that kind of show. Okay, you're going to hear the word and you're probably going to be like, ha ha. But don't do that. This is for the kids and you to enjoy. Okay? Be nice. The Erector Set. Do you know what an Erector Set is? You can still get these. These I know you can still get, because I had to look it up because I didn't remember the name. You can still get them places like Amazon and eBay and whatnot. Of course, you can get probably all this stuff on eBay, but you can get new Erector Sets on Amazon. What it was thin strips of metal. And I don't know if they were tin or if they were like steel. I don't think they were steel. I don't know. Maybe some of them were steel, and that was like part of the appeal to it. But they were thin strips of metal with holes put in, and you actually used like bolts, like nuts and bolts and screws and things to put things together with them, like big monstrous skyscrapers and buildings or robots or dinosaurs or whatever, all made out of this metal. And modern kids, I don't know. I mean, there's been a lot of things over the years that people are like, well, you can't give those to kids because kids will hurt themselves. And this is one of those things that I think probably suffered from that, because I can imagine some of these metal pieces being kind of sharp on the edges if you dropped them or if you grabbed them too hard. I would think. I can see kids probably hurting themselves with this, but that's fine. If you teach your kids to be careful and you do it with them the first few times, everything will be fine, I think. But it's probably a victim of safety things these days. I never had Erector Set stuff. I knew some people who did, and there were some pretty fantastic things they could do with them. I was never very good at them because I didn't have the imagination I had as a kid. Was more free flow. It wasn't very engineering. I developed that over time. I'm better at engineering now than I was as a kid. My brain has altered in different ways, and I'm much better of an engineer, I think, now than I was at the time as a child. Not that I'm going to go get any degrees and start working on rocket fuel or anything anytime soon, but still, I'm better now than I was. And so I wasn't very good. I was good at Legos, which is, I guess, another retro thing, but I've already covered a Lego show, so I don't want to get too big into that. But I did do real good with the Legos. I made all kinds of things that were structurally sound, despite that they probably shouldn't have been. But I did go with the Legos. How about the Easy Bake Oven? You guys remember that? The Easy Bake Oven. And this one's one of those crazy ones. That has to be from an earlier generation where kids either knew better or it was just like, oh, well, little Jimmy got burned. He should have known better. Whoops. But the Easy Bake Oven, it was like a toaster oven. It was a real cooking appliance that you got for your kids. And they would get like little packages of pre-made things like cake mix and brownie mix and cookie mix and whatnot. It would all be put together. You wouldn't have to put anything in. You maybe had to add water or something like that. I don't think you had to add much to them. And they said, okay, they always said on the box and in the commercials, oh, use with parental guidance and whatnot. But as a kid, you're always like, nah, I want to make myself some cookies. I don't want my parents around. So you always messed up the recipes. But they would come with all these recipes and you could buy more at the store and you could pop them in and it would take like 15, 20 minutes and then you'd have a treat. And it was real food. It wasn't like fake food or anything. It was real like brownies and cakes and cupcakes and things. But you're a kid working with a real toaster oven. And I don't think you can do too much of that nowadays either. Again, for safety reasons, probably. People are more like, oh, I don't want my kids burning themselves on that. So you don't have those so much. Now, in addition, because the Easy Bake Oven was always marketed, because, back then, it's a little better now. You still have, the Barbies marketed at girls and then whatever marketed at boys. You still get a little bit of that nowadays, but that's kind of slowly going away. It's becoming more, acceptable for kids to have whatever toys they want, right? But back when I was a kid, they were really heavily entrenched that the Easy Bake Oven was a girl's thing, right? So for the boys, they had creepy crawlers. I had to look this up too because I didn't remember the name exactly, but they had creepy crawlers, and it had a little oven called the Thing Maker. And this wasn't food. This was chemicals. You would put this little solution in these die-cast metal molds and put them in and bake them in this little oven, and you'd come out with, you could pop it out and it'd be like a rubber snake or a worm or a little spider or something, like little gummy things that you couldn't eat, but they were like Jell-O, basically kind of that kind of stuff, but with this chemical solution that made them. So the boys had that. And I think that's probably more dangerous, because now you're not just working with food. Like, food will burn and maybe you'll have a problem. But this is like chemical stuff. We were wild as kids. I'm sure. I didn't have these things. I think one of my sisters once had an Easy Bake Oven. Maybe. But we didn't get much use out of it. I don't think. I think we ended up just, if we wanted to make something, we would just make something as a family, go downstairs, and my folks would put whatever we wanted to make into the real oven, and we'd just make treats from real recipes and things. But I don't know. I think we had one. We never had a creepy crawler. I didn't have that. How about another one that's not on my list? Polly Pocket, which is apparently still kind of a thing. You can still get Polly Pocket things nowadays. But back in the day, they were really tiny. They were super tiny. And you'd have like a makeup case or something. Because again, marketed to girls. You had like a makeup case. You'd flip it open, but it would be like a play set. Like it'd be a pet store. Or it would be like a miniature salon, or it'd be a little restaurant or something like that. And they'd be tiny little figures that would go around different places. And they had a boys version. I don't remember what it was called. Maybe it was Mighty Max. And instead of like makeup cases and purses and whatever they were supposed to look like, they were like monster faces. They'd go like zombie face, and you pop it open and it'd be a cave, and there'd be skeletons and stuff in there and monsters that you'd move around. And that kind of bled into other areas. You had different kind of sets that were like both of those based off other things. Like I had a Star Wars one I still got it, I think. I think it's still up in the attic, honestly. I had, I think I got two of them. I've got a Chewbacca one and a C-3PO one. And the Chewbacca one, you open it up, because it's a bust of Chewbacca, basically. You open it up, and inside, it's the Ewok scene from Return of the Jedi, and you got like little Ewok flying around, and you got little nets and traps in there, and little speeder bikes, And these are all like less than an inch, little tiny figures. And the C-3PO one opens up and turns into the cantina from Mos Eisley, from Tatooine, from the desert, for people who don't know what the names are from. Okay? And again, little tiny figures like the little band and things like that. So that was cool. I think I might have even had... I feel like I had a Jabba's Palace one too, but maybe I didn't. Maybe I had like a separate playset that was that. I don't think it flipped open. I think you actually popped the whole top off of it. It wasn't somebody's face. I think it looked like the palace on the outside, and then you'd open it up, and it was... And I had a Hoth one, the Ice Planet. So I had a couple of them, but those two didn't open. They just looked like playsets from the onset, so they weren't as clever. But those are like things that were big when I was a kid, and I know I've seen like Polly Pocket stuff recently, within the last few years. And I don't think it's as small. I think they're bigger because I don't think they want things to get lost, or they don't want kids to swallow the little figures, something like that. How about Teddy Ruxpin? You guys remember that? He was a stuffed animal. He was a bear with a vest. Like, it looked like one of those Back to the Future style. Like, he was futuristic bear. He's styling and profiling like Ric Flair. And he had a tape player, a cassette tape player built into him. And he had one of those recorder microphones, like, on Home Alone, the second one where he records everything into that little thing and it plays back his voice and whatnot at slow speeds and fast speeds to make different voices. He had one of those, so you could get him to tell stories and things. Like, his voice box would articulate the stories that you told him. It was pretty advanced at the time, and that had been around, I think, since the 70s at least, maybe more. Maybe it was late 60s, I don't know. I wasn't around back then. But I know during the 80s it was still big. Never had one, of course. We didn't have stuff like that when I was a kid. That stuff was expensive. Always saw them in the toy catalogs. Like, we would get those big old J.C. Penney catalogs and the Sears catalogs and things, and they would have the huge... They'd be real gigantic, like bigger than the phone book. They'd be like 5-10 pounds each. They were huge. And they would come in, and your folks would see, oh, yeah, look at all those deals on the tools and the clothes and whatnot for back to school. And we'd be like, okay, whatever. As soon as we got our hands on them, we'd flip to the toy section, which was like huge sections of pages long. And we would just drool over all these toys that maybe we could get and maybe we wouldn't. And sometimes we'd be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to add them to my Christmas list. And Mom and Dad would be like, okay. And they would go and pick them up without you knowing. And things like that. So sometimes. But, yeah, we'd get those every year around the holidays. And we loved looking at that. When I was a kid, we didn't have the kind of money to just go and get all these things. So, I mean, we may do. I'm not saying that we were, like, destitute. I'm not saying we went without. I mean, maybe we did. But it's not that big of a deal. It's not like I'm going to lament it and be like, oh, we were so poor or something like that. I mean, because there are generally people who don't have things out there. And can't even eat and stuff like that. We weren't at that level. We could eat, and I don't want people to be like thinking I'm trying to get people to feel bad for me, because I would rather you help the people that need help. We were okay. We just didn't have some of the nicer toys that other people had. But there were some of the big board games that were around at the time, like Candyland. I was telling my daughter about Candyland. Candyland's still around. It's one of those enduring things that never goes away. And I don't even remember what all of the parts of the board were called. I know there was there's candy waterfalls and gumdrop hills and all kinds of other stuff. And you would get stuck places and get lost and have to go back spaces and forward and back and get to the end. And Mousetrap, where you set up that big elaborate thing and try to don't get caught under the net, the plastic net that would fall down. Mousetrap was a thing. Nowadays, some of the games that they have are weird. Because we don't have too many of them here. We don't really do board games so much in my house. We've got chess and we've got some Trivial Pursuit here and there. But we don't really do board games. But Rob from This Uncanny Earth does those kind of games with his kid, and some of those games are just it's a sign of the times, I guess. It's modern humor, I suppose. It's not my thing, but they like it. And then you had like the different interactive things, and I know people are gonna like start snickering and making jokes about it, but it's supposed to be an innocent thing for kids at the time, like Twister, right? Where you have the colored circles on the ground and somebody spins a board and you have to try to maneuver and not fall over. As I was growing up, stuff like that eventually morphed into interactive things like Dance Dance Revolution and whatnot, which that even advanced further into the various Kinect games from like Xbox and stuff like that, the motion capture things. So the concept of that kind of thing, getting involved in it, is still around. And now that we got VR and whatnot, it's even more so. And I'm not really into that so much. I'm not into... If I'm trying to play a game or something like that, I'm not looking to exercise. If we're playing like a sports thing, like going out and playing catch or like hitting something with a bat or whatnot, that's fine, you know. And my daughter's older. She's going to be 9 this month, so she might be into doing that kind of stuff more. If I can do it, because I was never very good at that as a kid. I'm still pretty bad at athletic things as an adult. But maybe we'll try it. I'll see what we can do. Throw a ball back and forth or get a bat or something. I'm going to need like a face mask or something. I don't want to get hit in the face with a bat. But yeah, retro toys. Like there's so many things that I remember as a kid. And like brain teaser things like rings and stuff like magicians would do, where you try to get the rings out. Or you try to move the blocks out. Like Jenga's still a thing. Jenga was, as I was growing up, balancing stuff. That was a bit later on, I think. I don't remember that being around as early as when I was really young, but I know that came up much later. There were variations of that, though. Like there was some plastic game that we used to play that was kind of like Jenga, where you'd pull things out and hope not to collapse something. But I don't remember what it was called. It was a bit different. It involved marbles and what was it? What are the sticks called? That you put kebabs on. Skewers. They were like wooden skewers, basically, and you put them in a pattern, and then you put these marbles on top, and then you pull one by one and hope that the marble doesn't fall out. And the last person, if they pull one out and the marble goes, then they lose. We had something like that. I don't remember what it was called. And there's stuff like Boggle and Yahtzee and whatnot. We didn't have... we might have had one of those, but I don't remember actually playing any of them. Playing cards, we'd play like Go Fish, Crazy Eights, Gin Rummy and stuff as kids. Although we were never really good on the rules. I don't remember any of the rules now for most of that stuff. I know Go Fish because it's a matching game, but the other ones I have no idea. Uno. We played Uno a lot when I was a kid. Uno was a big thing at my house. It's still big now. Like people still definitely know what Uno is, and it's like it's pop culture thing now. It's ingrained in the culture to the point where people still make memes out of it. It's surprising. It's one of those things that has endured for a long time. There was another one that I used to play in school. This was it was designed for schools, for students. It was a math game called something 24, like Check 24 or Catch 24, or I don't remember what it was called. And you were supposed to do like addition and whatnot and try to, like all the cards had numbers on them and you were supposed to add things up to get to 24. Which sounds a lot like blackjack, but it wasn't. It was a kid's game. Maybe it was just preparing us for a future where we had to play blackjack. I don't know. It wasn't 21 to win, though. It was 24, I think. And, yeah. So, yeah. That's retro toys. What are some of your favorite retro toys? If you're watching or listening to this on YouTube, you can drop me a comment on this video. I don't think you can comment on any of the other things that you listen to it on. But you can listen to it. If you listen to it on YouTube, drop me a comment. Even if you listen to it on Spotify, now you know you can go to YouTube. So go to YouTube and drop a comment from there. You don't got to watch the whole episode all over again. You can, if you want to. I won't mind. I'll encourage that. But if not, just drop me a comment is the point, all right? The point I'm making. Or send me an email at uncannyspiritsclub@gmail.com. Questions, comments, concerns, etc. I would love to hear what kind of toys you played with as a kid. And how retro were they? Were they retro to you? Are they not around anymore? Are they beyond all the things that I talked about? Or are they newer and I remember them, but they're just not around anymore? Who knows? I'd like to hear your stuff on it. But that's it. That's another episode of Spider Does. No, it's not, because Spider Does Things is my YouTube channel, isn't it? This is Let's Talk About This. So it's just part of Spider Does Things, because I do this. I do things. So Let's Talk About This is what this is called. Tell your friends. Share it. Sit around the dinner table with your family and listen to the show. It'd make me slightly more pleased if you did that for me. For your good buddy Spider. Do me a favor. But that's all I got for you. I'm going to see you folks next week. Have fun.